Hey, what's going on, everyone? And in today's video, I want to show you AWS Lambda and just a quick basic way on how to get started with Lambdas. Let me start with what the Lambda is and why this may be some of your interest. Well, Lambda is basically a function that is running on the server. And the biggest difference between your own server and the Lambda function is that you don't have to set up the server yourself. So you setting up the function and the server is already set up for you by Amazon. What are the benefits of this? Well, you're not paying for the server because with Lambda, you're paying for the function invocation. So depending on how long your function takes to execute, whatever that is, 1 second, 2 second, 3, this is what you're going to be paying for. And I'll show you how to where to see how much exactly you're going to be billed on this specific like function invocation when we build this application. So you set up the account. You in this search bar, you search for Lambda. Lambda. You can hit that star, so that's going to be bookmarked for you for the future. That's what I have here. Then you click that. You go on to the first screen, create function, and this is how you end up here. So for the basic default example, we are not going to set up any like permissions, roles, and whatnot. This is going to be created for us by the Amazon. For advanced settings, again, we're not going over VPC peering, so we don't need that. That's more advanced topic, requires more time and stuff like that. So we're just focusing on pure Lambda functions. So for this first screen, we only need the name for we need to provide the name for our function, send email, and that's it. Let's create a function. Also, in our VS Code, let's create a folder. I'm going to call it Lambda back for the backend. Let's cd into this Lambda back, and we're going to initialize our npm I init -y, so we kind of agree to all of the questions that they have there. And this is what we have, package.json. Back to this screen here. Just disregard this, whatever error that is, doesn't matter. This is our function. If you click on this index file here, this is our basic function. And this is what it do. Basically, it's just console logging or printing out or sending the response with a status 200 and the body of hello from Lambda. Not much, right? But we're going to get to that. We're going to write our own functionality in a second. So the main ways of interacting with this is basically like CLI, AWS CLI. You can run that if you prefer. You can directly modify this file, or you can upload from the zip file. This is the way we're going to do. Your main question, I guess, would be how do you install like Node.js package? Let's say we're going to be sending emails from Node.js. We're going to use Node Mailer. So how the hell you set up the Node modules? How you install packages in here? Well, for that you need your VS Code, your computer. You basically build an application on your computer, and then you upload it to your function. And let's do that real quick. I'm not going to be writing code myself because I already have this set up, and that way it takes very long time. I had another video which I was about to post, but then it was like 52 minutes. That's quite too much. Let's actually narrow it down so it's nice, compact, because the main reason for this tutorial is to show you the functionality of Lambda and not functionality of how you build like Node.js application for sending emails, which there are plenty of videos on YouTube. So let's install basic packages for this. But I'm still going to go over the code that we're going to write, and we're going to build basically two applications. We're going to do a basic Node.js server for sending out emails, and we're going to test it on localhost, and then we're going to convert that into Lambda friendly example, and then we're going to upload that to Lambda, and then we trigger the same thing from Lambda. All right, npm install express. node mailer, and .env. That's it. That's all we need. Let's create an index file, index.js, and let's create an env file, .env. All right, so for index.js, I'm going to copy and paste because, again, I'm going to walk you through this, but it's not going to be like a tutorial on how to use this, how to build an application in Node.js. And then app.listen, I'm going to listen on the port and just output the console log here with the port. So basically, we're requiring the .env so we can use our process.env in our application. We're then specifying we're requiring the express from the package we just installed. We're requiring the node mailer from the node mailer we installed, and then we're assigning express to our app. Then we use JSON format for that, for the requests, and the port number, basically either the env or this 5000 if we have that set up. So let's set up the port. Port is going to be 5050 for me. You can use whatever you want. Then all we need to do to test this out is node index.js. Make sure you're inside of this location, right, where your folder is. You hit enter, and with this minimal setup, this is what you're supposed to see. Server running on port 5050. That's an indication that everything is working and all the packages imported correctly, including the port. And you just saw port 5050. That means we are picking up this port from the env file. All right, I'm going to copy the function, the post function with a send route, and I'm going to explain what that does. And that's nothing new. It's just a simple function with node mailer. If you've done this before, absolutely nothing new. You can find tutorials on the internet which are going to go probably more in depth through this, but I'll quickly show you what that does and how it all works. So we have basically app and the post method for our /send route, and inside of that route, we're getting hold of request and response. We parsing or we destructuring name, email, and message from request.body. Nothing new, right? If you're familiar with Node.js, this is a basic stuff. Then we're getting hold of these. So ideally, these are coming from your front-end application, right? When you're making a request and you're sending out the post request with that information in, this is how you get a hold of those from your form submission. In our case, I'm going to use Thunder Client. You can use Insomnia, Postman, whatever you prefer to interact with this backend that we're just setting up. So we're getting those values, and then we're setting up the transporter with our node mailer. We specify the service, which is our Gmail port, 465 for SSL, 587 for TLS. And then authentication is our user and password. So your Gmail user is basically something that we're going to set up now. I have, where the hell I have it? I have it here, but the password is not correct already. Okay. Let's go to env. Let me copy and paste these and then the password as well, which is already expired. I'll have to redo that. So basically, what's Gmail user? Gmail user is the main email from which our clients and our staff and whoever else are going to be receiving emails from. The rest is the staff, basically is someone who works for you maybe, or it's your other email that you want to receive these notifications to. And the password is probably more related to the first one than to the second, because this is the app-specific password for this account. So it's not the password for your Gmail, sorry. It's the password for app-specific password. And how you set up that is you go to your Gmail, click security. If you have two-factor authentication set up, you will be able to navigate to app password right away. If you don't have, then you need to set up two-factor authentication, and then you will be able to access this app password. So I have mine set up here, which I'm going to delete now because it's no longer a valid password. I'm going to basically show you how it works. So you select an app, you click other, you give it a name, let's say Lambda test and generate. Make sure you remember this, you write it somewhere because you're no longer going to be able to see that. So if you're writing inside of env, put it into env, save it, and then hit done, because after that, you're no longer able to see this. So then we move on. Basically, this transporter is SMTP client, and you specifying where we're going to be sending those emails from, and you need that app password, which we are importing here as an env variable. Then here we're specifying the email that we want to send to our staff, such as you have a new message from the name of the user that we parse out on this line here, the email of the user who's submitting that, and the message that user put together. And then we're putting this together into our staff mail from our user to our staff, the subject, and the staff email that we put together on line 21. Same thing for user. We are setting up the response for our user. Thank you for contacting us, the name of the user that he submits, or she, and then the rest of it like goes like that, whatever you want to write there. And then from, again, our Gmail user, as I told you before, this is our main thing from which we're sending emails. Then the email, again, this time it's different because we want to send this email to the user who's submitting this, right? That's why we're parsing this out here and including there as a recipient. And then subject, whatever you want, then text is the user message that we put together here, line 29. And then we have two try catches here, which are sending emails to our staff, right? This is the staff email. And then the second one is sending the user email, which we put together here. That's it. So it's like await transporter send email. You pass that as a parameter, and then you console log this, and then just a basic return from a function. That's it. So that's our basic Node.js application. This is how you send it inside of Node.js using Node Mailer. Nothing too sophisticated. As I said, it's all, if you've done this before, nothing new. Right, so we are running our app, and in order to test this, as you saw there, I type in node index.js, saying what we did before. And now we need to hit this endpoint in order to see whether we're going to email ourselves or we're going to miserably fail. So make sure you save in the file. I'm not sure what I modified there, but it's important. And without nodemon, unfortunately, you have to run the server if you do any changes manually. Anyway, let's go to Thunder Client, localhost. It's going to be 5050, and send. So we need to convert this to post request, body, JSON, and then JSON format. So we have, do I have it anywhere else? I don't want to type it. Nope, I don't think I have it. All right, anyway, I'll type it real quick, whatever. So the first thing, we have a name, if I can spell it. Name, let me put my name in there. Then we have what, email. And this is the email where we're going to receive our confirmation of submission, right? Whatever that is for you. And message. This is what user is submitting ideally on your front end application form. And this is what comes from your front end. I want to hire you. Okay, let's try it out. So localhost 5050/send, post request, body JSON. This is our message. And if everything works, make sure your server is running. If everything works correctly, then we should be able to see our responses like that. So we don't have any errors. We have staff email sent, user email sent, and that's it. So if we take a look at our user here, this is our staff email. So we have our new message. If we take a look, we have a new message from Andre at this email. I want to hire you. This is what we just submitted, right? And if you look into client email, or whoever just wrote that to you. So you're gonna see this. Thank you for contacting us, Andre. We will get back to you as soon as possible, whatever that is for you. So that worked. Now, this is our Node.js application, right? It's quite simple in terms of like how we interact with this. Let me stop it. We have an endpoint, we hit that endpoint, and we run this code. So how the hell this works in Lambda? It's pretty much the same thing, except a few minor changes. We no longer need our Express application because the way it is, if you look at the name of it, it's Lambda function, right? So the only thing we need is a function. And that's why I said, like in the beginning, that you don't need a server. You don't even need to set up this Node.js server. And let's modify this file. So we transform this into Lambda function. So we're going to delete this app listen. We don't need that. We don't need this require.env because that's going to come from AWS itself. We don't need the express anymore because we're not running that. We don't need app express. Oops, too much. We don't need app express and we don't need app.use. We don't need port because that's going to be set up by Node.js. The only thing we need is just node mailer. That's it. And then instead of this app.post, since we don't have app anymore, we're going to convert this into exports.handler. It has to be async, right? Because we make an async request inside. And basically, that's pretty much it. We need to delete this at the bottom here from the previous functionality. And the only difference from now on would be here, because inside of Lambda, we have an event. That's how we get hold of our body. And it's going to be a little bit different because we need to parse this event.body. This is the way we interact with Lambda. This is how it's set up on AWS Lambda. That's pretty much it. The rest of the functionality of our code stays the same. We just parse out our name, email, message, and that's it. And the way we send the response back is a little bit different too. We just have to send the object with status and the body, which is going to be JSON stringify. And then you put the message you want in there. And that's pretty much it. You hit save. We only have node mailer, exports.handler, async function, then parse those variables out, and the return is like this. Then the rest in the middle between those two stays the same. All right, so how do we submit now this to our function? Well, basically, if you right-click on your folder and you reveal this in File Explorer, you go inside of this folder, you deselect the env because we don't need that in our Lambda, and then you just compress to zip file. So everything but env, including node modules, we need that, obviously, because we are still requiring our node mailer here. And then we can upload this package in our interface here, just upload zip. You can either search it on your computer or you can just drag and drop. Hit save. Now, whatever that message is, doesn't matter. And now you can see we have a different structure inside of this send email Lambda function. It's whatever we had on our computer, right? Except the env file. It's node modules, index, package, JSON, and package. So if you open up the index, sometimes if your file is too large, too many entries, you're probably going to be presented with the message that, sorry, the file is too large, you can't preview this. But since my file is only 48 lines, I'm able to see it. If that's the case for you, don't worry, it's still going to work. It doesn't mean your function is broken. It's just too large for this UI to display that. Anyway, what we do from now on. So our function is set up, sort of. Let's go to configuration. We now need to add environment variables. Hit environment variables, edit, add, and then whatever you have in your environment variables except the port, we want to copy over. So your email that you are sending your emails from, your password for that email, app password that we set up, and then Gmail staff and the Gmail for your staff. You can obviously hard code all of those things inside of your app, but if you want to be secure, use CNV. Well, this is the way you do it. Hit save, and this concludes our function setup. Now function is configured. If you don't have errors inside of your code, it should run. Now, how do you trigger this function? Because remember, on localhost, we spin up the Node.js server, we hit that address with localhost 5050, we provide this object, and this is how we interact with it. With Lambda functions, a bit different. We need to set up the API gateway. This is how it's going to look for you. The first page, when you have nothing set up in there, you hit build HTTP API, then build. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you. So then you add the integration, because we want to integrate this API with our Lambda function. And hitting this endpoint from now on, as soon as you select this, make sure you select the right region, right? Because if you set up a different region, like make sure that if you're not seeing anything, but you set up the Lambda, then maybe the different is the problem, region is the problem. So this is the Lambda that we set up. Send email, select that, and give it a name for the API gateway. Send emails. Our function is send email. This is plural. So next, and this is where we specify the method. Specifying the method. It's going to be a post request for us. It's going to be a send. It is not necessarily supposed to be a send, but it should be something that you at least remember, and you're going to hit later this. But I'll show you where to look for this if you set up something like that and you forgot what the name is. And then integration target is the send email Lambda function. Next, this is the stage name. I'll keep it as default. Auto deploy. I always forget to deploy, so then I'm keeping this on for sure. Next, just a summary of what we just did. Create. And if you ever forget what the name of your endpoint is or route, you go to API gateway, select whatever the API gateway you set up, and then go into routes on the left-hand side, and there you have it, /send, and this /send having one post route that we just set up. Okay. One caveat, one takeaway from this: if you are going to be using this for testing purposes, just kind of playing around, hitting this endpoint with your Thunder client, Postman should be fine, because realistically, when you hit that with your Thunder client, you're not using localhost, you're using services that Thunder client is providing to you, and therefore you're not going to have coarse problems. But if you put together a simple application where you want to be as precise on that as possible, or as production close as possible, you're going to have a coarse problem, right? So hitting this endpoint, actually, I'm going to show you. Select the API gateway, and this is the endpoint for your Lambda function. Back to course. So if you are trying to test this out from your front-end application, you're probably going to, that fetch request that you're going to make is probably going to fail, because of course, you're going to be seeing the big fat error saying that you can't access this from your local host at this address. Then you go to course, configure, and just for testing purposes, you can add stars and then select everything, all of the requests, right? Just stars everywhere, and then no origins are allowed. Anyway, that's the way you set up the course. If you want to add an origin, I believe just HTTP, that's what it was complaining about. Just add the localhost, save. Invalid format for origin localhost. Okay. What was invalid for this one? Well, probably it wasn't valid before. I had two of them there, right? That's why it failed. But if I do HTTP localhost, that should save it. Yeah, so that's saved. Um, and you should be able to hit this endpoint with your localhost. Let's go back to our Lambda. Actually, you know what? We want to copy that endpoint. I just completely forgot. Let's go back to API Gateway, select our API, copy this address, put it into our Thunder client. Just going to remove this localhost, add this endpoint, and then /send, right? Then post request, body JSON, and this is the body JSON we need. And if everything is set up correctly, you should invoke that function. Let's go back to Lambda now, since we have this endpoint set up. Send email, and if you go to monitor, this is where you're going to see your outputs, either inside of the logs. Oh, I had the same function name in the past. That's why you are seeing these invocations here, but yours is going to be empty. Since my name is for the function is the same that the one I had before, the CloudWatch logs are the same because this send email is set up for that. We can delete this log group and set it up the same way, basically. So that will clear out those messages. But I'm not going to do that. Just what's the reason? Okay, we have few invocations, but it doesn't matter. But be aware of that. That if you are deleting some function and then you're creating exactly the same one with the same name, then you're going to have same logs. Well, not same logs, but you have the logs from the previous function. And in order to get rid of them, just delete the log group and create just exactly the same one. That should take care of that. Anyway, so if we trigger this function now at this endpoint, it should work and we should see the invocation. I just want to point out that this one was 22 Zulu at 42 minutes. Right now, my time is probably going to be 0032. So that's how we're going to see whether or not this function is triggered, or we're going to see it in CloudWatch logs inside here. Because the last one was 1642. Right now it's 1832. Let's try it out. Let's hit send. Keep in mind, this is the message that we're sending. I want to hire you, Andre. All right. It says 200, but it's actually the way we have it set up is sending 200s all the time. So it doesn't matter if it fails or not with those try catch. But how can we distinguish that is, well, by just looking inside of our emails, I guess. And this is what you see here at the in the bottom right corner, a new message, right? Show. And this is what we have. Let me modify this just to prove that this is work. Let's add these numbers here. So we know that this is from most recent, and this is the endpoint, right? Send, email sent, and there we go. New message, show, and this is what we have. You have a new message from Andre 12345. I'll hire you 12345. And same here, show two new messages. The one was the one is we sent just before that, and this is the new one with 12345. All right, that worked. It means our function worked. Let's refresh these logs. Oh, they're not. Well, yeah, it is updated. You can see 0032, as I just said. And then if we look into CloudWatch, I believe CloudWatch, yeah, 1832. So you can see that. And inside of the CloudWatch, this is where you're going to look for your console logs if you're interested. And this is where you're going to look for errors in case any happen. Staff email sent. Remember that this is the same thing that we saw on our Node.js application on localhost. Staff email send. Then the one below is going to be user email send. And in case of any failure or error or whatever, you're going to see it here as well. And this is where you see your build duration, right? This is the time that you're going to be built for. and some statistic here, what was the size allocated and what was the max memory used for this function invocation, and initialization duration. So out of this, it took like 247 milliseconds to initialize before it started to work on your function, right? So this is the build duration, I guess. Where here? This is what's most important, I suppose. This is how much. This is what's going to charge you, right? Just a little quick takeaway, I guess. If you are setting up a function and you're creating your own user role, make sure you set up the role for. Let me actually show you what it's supposed to have, what it needs by default, and then whatever you want to add on to that is up to you, right? Permissions, role name. This is what was created by default, and this is what you need as a bare minimum. AWS Lambda basic execution role. So this is the bare minimum for you to execute that function and to write into your CloudWatch, I suppose, because it has this one here, right? Action log, create log stream, and put log events. So this is the bare minimum for application for your logs. But that's about it for this video. Hope you enjoy this. Hope you learn a thing or two. I'll see you in the next one.